Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to read a Bible story about a man who chose to do the right thing, God's right thing, no matter what. This man's name is Daniel. Now, you'll remember Daniel's name from a previous Bible lesson. Remember, Daniel was the man who's working for the king and decided to, instead of eating the king's food, he decided to eat God's food, the food that God said that he wanted to eat, which was fruits and vegetables. In this story, Daniel worked for a different king. This king's name was King Darius. And Daniel, he had this habit of praying to God 3 times a day, in the morning, at noon, and at night before he goes to bed. He opens the window up and everybody can see him praying to the one and only God. So, this prayer helped him to become a man after God's own heart. And people could see that. And so he was very powerful in serving the king. He was like I said, he was working for the king, King Darius, and some of the other people who were working for King Darius were starting to get very jealous and upset. So they decided to come up with an evil plan. They thought, how can I get Daniel in trouble with the king? And their evil plan, they couldn't find any way to get him in trouble except for one way. But they had to be very sneaky about it. So listen. Okay, so the administrators and the high officers went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius! We all agree. We workers of the king, we administrators and officials, high officers, advisors, and governors. We agree that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. That means that if you break this law, that you will get in very big trouble. You won't get any mercy. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions. And now, your majesty, issue and sign this law so it cannot be changed, an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked." So King Darius signed the law. So the law that these men wanted him to sign meant that if anybody prayed to anybody except for the king, then they would be thrown into a den of lions. And King Darius agreed to it. So, first of all, who is the one person that we should ever pray to? God, because he is the one and only true, powerful God. Okay, so let's find out what happens. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down, as usual, in his upstairs room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done before, giving thanks to God. Then the officials went down to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking for God's help. So they went straight to the king and reminded him about the law. "Did you not sign a law that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions?" "Yes," the king replied, "that decision stands. It is an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked." Then they told the king, "That man Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, is ignoring you and your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day." Hearing this, the king was deeply troubled. That means he was really sad. And he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this situation. In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, "Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed." So at last, the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of his nobles, so that no one could rescue Daniel. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. That means that he refused to eat. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. He could not stop thinking about Daniel and the wrong thing that they had done to him. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God whom you serve so faithfully able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel answered, "Long live the king! My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, Majesty." The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. So, in this story, Daniel decided to do the right thing, even if it was against the law, because the law that the king signed was actually a very, very wrong law. And so Daniel continued to pray to the one and true God. In so doing, he was doing the right thing. And God was pleased that Daniel chose to do the right thing. And so even when the king punished Daniel and the lions, even if they were hungry, God closed their mouths. He protected Daniel by sending an angel. So when we choose to do the right thing in God's eyes, then God will do everything to keep us safe and protected, and he will make sure that you are blessed in that way. Okay, so we can all learn from Daniel. We need to remember, what would God want us to do? What have I learned from the Bible? Okay.